Hey folks, in our last video, we learned how to build a beautiful slider like this that works with a lovely loop. Also, it looks really good on mobile. And now we're going to learn how to code arrows so that they can sit on the right and left-hand side of the screen. Also, in our last video, if you didn't see part 2, don't worry, that's not mandatory. But we did go over how to make the different product cards dynamic. So now taking a look at what we are building in today's video, we will be building these arrows over here. So as you can see, we have a right arrow and a left arrow that work on interaction. So we're going to reference our current files and build these arrows so that they work wonderfully like so. So first things first is you'll want to go into your slider. Or your slider block. So again, just as a refresher, under the blocks folder, you can go into your slider that you created last time using Blaze. My block is called tutorial slider. Now inside of this block, you'll notice that we have, again, as a refresher, a Blaze setup, and we have a little bit of CSS styles and some JavaScript. Now the first thing to do is we want to add in some sliders below or within this Blaze container over here. And Cursor already knows what I want to do. And essentially, I want to drop in a button with a right arrow and a button with a left arrow here. Also, you'll notice that Cursor is trying to say that we want to have an arrow in here, but right now this doesn't reference anything. So let's go ahead and add in an arrow through our settings, snippet right inside the settings here. So I'm going to drop in this arrow here. And essentially what this is this is a new type that we haven't talked about on the channel before, but it is a type of HTML. And I have an ID of arrow in it. And I actually have this SVG that's an arrow SVG added directly as a default option. If you don't have this for now, what you can do is actually just comment out both of these arrows. And what we can do is write left and right. And now if we go back into our theme and refresh, you'll notice we have these buttons here. And they're already starting to work within our slider, which is fantastic. But as you can tell, these are pretty ugly, and we can also streamline these a little bit more. Now, Blaze is actually smart enough to know that we want these Blaze previous and Blaze next arrows to work on interaction because we have them under arrow controls. But what you'll want to do is also reference them directly within the JavaScript by going in here. So this just kind of future proofs the arrows a little bit more. So now we have a previous arrow and a next arrow, and we are referencing the class of Blaze previous and Blaze next. Awesome. So now going back to this really cool snippet here, which if we go into our theme, you'll notice that all it is just an HTML block where we have added in an SVG. So if you don't want to use an SVG, you could use like an image or something, but I like using an SVG just because it's a little bit more performance, and it just looks more clear as well too, I find. So I've dropped this in. And again, if you want to reference this snippet, I'll have a link in the description of this video so that you can reference all the code that I'm writing out here. So now that we have that in, let's swap our left and right arrows to be an actual SVG. So what we're going to do is go up here and we're going to say assign arrow block.settings.arrow, and we are going to remove the text left and move the text right, and we are going to uncomment out this here and uncomment out this here, and we are going to hit save in our theme customizer. And now you can see we got 2 arrows, but they are 2 right arrows, which is definitely wrong. So how do we get around that? Well, what we'll want to do is start to add in a little bit of CSS. So the first thing to do is go up top here, and what we're going to do is just make a comment for arrow styles. And then what we'll want to do is um, reference our arrow controls and our arrow buttons. So for our arrow controls here, I'm going to drop in some CSS. And again, we're scoping everything to the block. So within this block here, we are only defining the styles to that block. And we're saying for the arrow controls, we want them to be position absolute. We want them to be up from the top 50% and translated y negative 50%. So when using absolute positioning, we want them to be centered right over here. But in order to make that work, we actually need to make the Blaze container relative. And I'm actually just going to set a little bit of a width on it as well too. So now if I go like this over here, we should see them positioned wonderfully. Yep, so now they're getting positioned a little bit better, but as we can see, the style of them is pretty ugly. So what we're going to do here is drag in some styles for the buttons. So I'm going to drag and drop that in here, and we're going to close that bracket. And now we should see much better arrow styling for the buttons, and we do. But again, going back to our to right arrow issue, what we'll want to do is just add a rotation for the left arrow here. So I'm going to go down and I'm just going to drag and drop this in. Now what we're saying is for the previous arrow, we want it to rotate 180 degrees. So now if we refresh inside the theme customizer here, you'll notice that arrow is flipped around. Now I'm just going to drop in a little bit of code just to make the opacity shine through for the arrows, which of course this is completely optional. And the last thing I'm going to do for styling is drop in a translation so that the arrows peek out slightly outside of the container, so they're centered slightly better. We'll notice that the arrows now are looking much better, and also they peek outside of the corner a little bit, which is really nice. Also on mobile, they look like so. For mobile, if you don't want the arrows to display, obviously you could reference them and say if the screen is max width 900 pixels, display none for the previous and next arrow. Great, that's pretty much all for this video. It is a bit of a quicker one. But at least you can kind of see how the interaction it works, and really you can go nuts with styling these arrows any way you want. Long story short, the most important part is just to make sure that you have a Blaze previous and a Blaze next arrow, reference it inside the JavaScript down here, and then ideally you use some sort of like arrow SVG. And so in here I'm allowing the user to control the SVG directly inside the theme customizer. But the most popular technique that you'll see on Shopify is someone rendering in a snippet, and it would be, for example, snippet left arrow and snippet right arrow. Okay, awesome. If you like this video, please make sure that you like and subscribe. If you're interested in seeing more videos on how to build carousels, or if there's certain feature that you want built within this carousel, please leave me a comment and I'll be sure to build it in a video coming up. Awesome. Hope you have a great week. Cheers.